So again, my name is Nicolas Enriquez. I am from Colombia. I was born in 1993. And well, I just graduated from ICP at the end of June from the photojournalism documentary program. It was an amazing experience. It's a one-year program, and it was an opportunity to meet amazing friends and other photographers and have great teachers. And that's when I started to begin a little bit of my passion for photography. I didn't have this interest in photography until probably 2 years ago, and my knowledge in photography was very, very basic. And I have a few friends that probably will say that was zero when I started the program. But with the help of them and a lot of teachers, I started to develop a project called the Bloodline. This project, I got to New York, and for me, it was crazy how this city is like a robot. For me, it was just everything worked with a rhythm, and you can somehow kind of predict what's going to happen next because it already happened before. And nothing is new, but it still amazes you every single time you go out. So for me, it was a little bit overwhelming at the beginning. I was a little bit lost, and I needed to find a little bit of comfort or balance with this, and I tried to relate it to my life or where I was before, my country, Colombia, or where I used to live also in Ecuador. So I wanted a little bit with my community, with Latin people, and my interest has always been in urban conflict and social issues. So I wanted to document that, and I decided to do this project. The Bloodline is the name of the chapter designated by the gang of the Latin Kings to the state of New York. The Latin Kings is one of the largest gangs in America. They have more than 35,000 active members in America, mainly in Chicago and in New York. They started in Chicago in the early 40s, and now they are all around the world. We have them in Ecuador, they have them in Spain, Colombia, Central America. And something that has made them so successful is the way they organize the gang by hierarchies, and also how big their business on drug dealing and violence has grown since the early 40s. So at the beginning of this project, I somehow had a clear idea of what I wanted, but I didn't know how to pursue it. And it was even more difficult for me to pursue it here in New York, because it was hard for me. I'm good at, I think I'm good at speaking English, but the English they speak, it's very different to the one I learned or you learn at school. And that was a hard process. That there was something that took me time to understand them and to try to relate to what they do and why they do stuff. But I have a vision and an idea of what I wanted. So at the beginning, I started having these ideas of what I wanted. So it was always looking to other photographers. I had the honor to have as a teacher Joe Rodriguez, which is an amazing photographer, and he's done an awesome documentary on gangs. And well, looking at all these photographs on the internet, reading books, helped me a lot to visualize what I wanted and have always ideas in my head of if I get the opportunity, what would I do? But they were always very narrow to what other photographers had done before, like the guys with a gun or fights in the street or this very strong gang feeling from Brooklyn. And somehow there was a little bit of a problem at the beginning of my project. And it took me some time to gain this access. So at the beginning, this was the first Latin King I met. For kind of trying to know Latin Kings, there's no really fan groups or Facebook pages about them. So I had to go and walk in the street and try to find one. And this was the first person I met. His name is, well, they call him Bone, which means hueso in Spanish. And I met him creating this fake project that I call People Living in Their Neighborhoods. I will go out in the streets of Brooklyn with my camera and I'll talk to people and tell them, hey, I'm working on this. It's called People Living in the Neighborhoods, and I just want to take a 5-minute portrait and do a little interview. Will you mind if we do this? And if they agree, I'll take the portrait, and I'll kind of like start profiling and making the interview and think who might be and who might not be part of a gang member. So the people who I thought was a gang member, I will keep in touch with them. I'll get their emails, their phone numbers, and I'll bring prints afterwards of the portrait that I took of them. And I'll try to, I was underage at the moment, so I couldn't go and grab beers with them, which was a big problem. But I could go eat with them or try to bring something just to keep the friendship, like trying to make these access a little bit easier for me. So finally, I became friends with this guy. It was an awesome experience, but I started to get a little bit stuck with distance and intimacy. It was very hard for me to get closer. Somehow, even though I really wanted to do this and I wanted to be part of it and I knew the risks that were involved in it, I was still afraid because it was an environment that I didn't really understand or I really didn't know. So I was very distant in all my pictures, and as a person, I was very separated from what they were doing, and I needed to get a little bit more involved in it. I kept photographing until one day I was with Bone in the street, and I met this guy, which made my whole project possible. His name is Smokey. He's 25 years old. He runs the gang in Bushwick, what they call Southside. And he was just extremely helpful for me. Since he's the leader of the gang in Southside, he wanted me to take pictures of him one day at a party. So I was like, okay, I'm extremely nervous right now. I'm gonna go to this party. I was like almost shaking. I didn't know what to do. They were gonna pick me up in a car in Brooklyn. And the only thing that I could do was tell my friends, hey, someone is gonna pick me up in this address. This is my phone number and this is the phone number that I have from them. And I should be back, or at least let you know, send you a text at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. that I'm good or things are working. So I grabbed my camera and I went to this place. The car picked me up in front of a Subway sandwich-like restaurant in Bushwick, and we went to this party. The guy stopped before, a few blocks before, to take some pictures in front of some walls that had graffiti on them. And I was just like, the pictures were not working. I was just like completely nervous. I didn't know what to talk about. They were smoking marijuana in the car, a lot of drugs, and I was just like, wow, oh my God, what am I gonna do now? Like if they stop me, I'm like, oh, the Colombian guy, it's like gonna be the first one. And I was just like calling this into my destiny. It was gonna happen, I could see it. And then so we got to the party, and there was probably about 30 Latin Kings in this place. I knew only one of them. And hopefully, thank God this guy was the leader of the gang. I got so much respect from all of them. And it was so good. I had a lot of freedom to shoot whatever I wanted, which was extremely helpful. And I really enjoyed my time. I get to meet other people. Since it was not in a bar, I could drink with them, so I wouldn't look like just a kid, and keep photographing. Then we decided to leave the place a few minutes afterwards, just to go and grab more alcohol and eat something. And as soon as we left, a police car pulled us over. And I was like, oh my God, it happened. It's my fault, I call it. And so the police officer stopped us, and they made us get out of the car, driver's license, all this stuff, check all of us up. The car was smelling so much as marijuana, but none of us had marijuana because they just left it at the party. So it was good. They were all clean. They usually have little blades, but they're kind of legal because they all say that they work in construction, and they usually have construction helmets inside the car, so it was part of their construction. It's part of their job, so the police officer won't make any trouble because of that. So that was kind of helpful. And they asked for IDs and checked everybody except for me. One of the police officers even asked me if I was okay, if they were like somehow kidnapping me. And I was like, that's a little racist, but thank you, I'm good actually. So I kept going with them, It was good. I had fun, and that was like my first Latin King experience. And I was finally getting into what I wanted. And now the next part of my process was trying to keep it going, keep it working, don't lose that friendship, and just keep going once, twice a week and photographing like crazy. So all these pictures that I took in front of the graffitis, all the family, all these guys, I had to go back to school, process them and print them extremely fast to bring them in 2 3 days and give it to them. And like that was kind of like what I could give them, and that was like my present to keep going to their place. But talking to my teachers, which were my classmates, which were my photo editors and like who helped me build this project, I was very distant in my images, and I was very afraid of getting close to my subjects. So I had to somehow fight and strive to get a little bit closer. I wanted a little bit more of intimacy. I wanted something a little bit more special. I wanted to stop being in the streets, and I wanted to be a little bit more inside the apartment. I wanted to go into their houses, meet their family, meet their mom, meet their kids if they had kids, girlfriends, etc. So I had to like fight for this because I was too far away from them. And well, majority of them lives in the projects in Bushwick. A lot of you probably go over there or have been nearby. This is something that happens just 20 minutes away from here. It's not that far away. And I was just completely amazed by that. Like my image of New York being a Colombian or a foreigner was the Empire State Building and Times Square. And for me, that was what New York was all about. And I couldn't believe that just going 10 minutes away in the train, you could see all these like real New York City culture, what was the base of New York City just a couple of years ago. I was still a little bit distant. This is outside the projects. They usually have someone for gang security, which is the guy over there. He'll be standing outside the building 24/7 almost with a phone, and he'll give a call in case he sees police officers, other drug dealers because that's their business, or members of another gang. Then one day I finally made it inside the house of Smokey. He invited me to meet his family, and that was kind of like, oh, I really wanted that. I really wanted to be there, and I really wanted to photograph these people. And so I was very happy that I got to do this, and I was just like thinking what I was gonna tell next day to my classmates and my teacher, and be like, here it is, like I bring it, I made it, I got in. So I went to the house of Smokey, and I started to kind of like get a little bit concerned for something different. It was not the gang, it was not only the gang what I wanted to document anymore. As soon as I see the family situation, I start feeling different stuff for this project, and I just wanted to, like, the family is such a complex thing, and it was one of the main reasons for them to become gang members that I wanted to feel that. What is the family environment of a gang member, and what are the conditions they live on? So I started to meet more of the gang members, started going more to the house, listen a little bit more about their problems and their issues and why they decided to become a gang member. And it was the best. I made a lot of research on Wikipedia, Google, internet, books, but the only moment when I actually understood what they were doing was talking with them and talking with their families and just being part of their lives and what they experience every single day. There's a lack of freedom in what they do, even though they are like doing all this stuff, and basically it's like a playground for them to be outside. They're almost in jail the way they live. They have a lot of police security surrounding them, and it's a very closed environment. They don't really leave these places. They live inside the projects and they stay there, and that's where they make their lives and they make their business. It's a little bit slow. Then I started to, so it was a difficult process for me because I was just starting as a photographer, and my knowledge of photography was almost nothing. So it was very hard for me because I was trying to get access to this gang, but at the same time trying to know how to make a picture if I get access. So I was just like in this fight of what is actually a good picture, what is not a good picture, what is worth it. I will bring 100 pictures next day and they will tell me no for each one of them. It was just like completely depressing. I'll go back home, I'll be like, oh my God, why did I do this? What am I doing here? And I just like, all my teachers and classmates were very pushy for me to just be persistent and keep going and keep going. So get the idea and just shoot it until you get what you want from it. And once I start getting what I wanted from it, I'll just like repeat images until I get like images that was more a little bit what I was looking for. I was looking a little bit more for this feeling of, I started to fall into this feeling of they are all kids. Sometimes they are even like younger than me, and it's all somehow a game. It's like a little club of boys, like no girls allowed thing that they have, and it's just the game for them that becomes too risky and too dangerous just from from one day to the other. Living in the projects is in itself already a dangerous thing to do. At least in Brooklyn or in these projects, it's a lot of there's a lot of like claustrophobia. You're just inside this place. The windows all have bars. There's always security. There's always police officers outside, security cameras. There's gang members that are your neighbors, and there's all this stuff happening in front of your door. And for me, that was kind of like I didn't really know if I was with the good guys or with the bad guys or what was I trying to do. I'll see the neighbors of the same building looking at me or of the whole group like, oh, those guys again, blah, 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 doing all their stuff, and call the police. And I was like, I'm not part of that. But somehow I had to relate to it and just stick to it, even though they were not doing somehow the right thing. So I started to get this interest for Smokey's family. Smokey had a little kid. It's not his kid. That's his cousin, I think. I don't know how to say that word in English. Sorry. And that's Isis. That's his sister-in-law. And I was very interested in this, like in this relation. He lives with this family that is just his aunt. And he lives over there. He doesn't live with his family because his family lives in Staten Island. And since he has to take care of the neighborhood in Bushwick, he cannot live over there. He has to be like all the time with his group, with his gang, and taking care of the whole block that he manages. So a little bit, this is the mom. Her name is Kendra. That's the mom of Kyrell. She's an alcoholic. And she was like host. His house was one of the headquarters of the gang for a long time, and she will host all these gang members inside the place, even though she had a little kid, and they will be all smoking marijuana, talking about what they do, and for me, somehow it didn't make sense, and I wanted to like save this kid or make things different. But it's also the way they live. That's what they do. That's how they grew up. That's like, and the best way I could give something was just photographing stuff and being there, being present. There's a lot. They're always, even though they look like they are always angry and so defensive, they are very afraid of the outside, of what might happen in the next few minutes, in the next few hours, or the next few days. They're always looking for police officers. Just a few months ago, stop and frisk was somehow legal in New York, and that was something that really scared these people because they are always with drugs, they're always with something, and they really get profiled. I couldn't walk with the gang members in the street. We have to walk in groups of 2 or 3 because if you have a group bigger than 3, they will stop you, just because they're suspicious that you are part of a gang. So you'll always walk on different sides of the street, just in groups of 2 or groups of 3 at max. This is B-Rat. That's Kyrell. Kyrell was a really nice kid. He was always playing and liked photography a lot. And this is a little bit of the environment where these kids grew up. Kyrell grows up in this house when both parents are alcoholic. They're always passed out. They're all smoking marijuana with their children. And this environment for me, I always had very good environment at my home. My parents are great, and my family had always supported me. I had a very stable family. And for me, this was completely different. I couldn't believe that you'll raise a kid in these conditions, and that, what was the future of this kid, but becoming, being part of a gang. I couldn't see farther than being a gang member for Kyrell. So I was trying to portray that the future of him was basically gonna be just part of the gang as his family. There's also a lot of hanging around in the house. They all love smoking marijuana. It's the main thing of the gang. So there's a lot of just hanging at Smokey's place or hanging at different parts of the projects, and they just meet up for smoking. Who's gonna roll up next? That's the favorite quote, and that's their business. They sell a lot of crack to homeless people, which is what helps them economically, is selling crack and stealing and selling stuff that they have stolen. Cameras, laptops, phones. This is a little cat. My girlfriend told me to put it there because it's nice. Then this is Leah. She's the kid of a guy called Finesse. So this was a little bit of another part of my project where I started to get involved with the same gang, but another neighborhood called East Side. And these guys were friends at the beginning. It was completely fine for me to go and photograph them. There was no problem, but suddenly they started to fight between each other, and I got stuck in the middle. There was nothing I could do. And they started telling me okay, so why were you with them? What were you doing with them? Are you here or are you there? What are you doing? And I just had to really somehow take a decision or be as neutral as possible and separate myself for a time, a month or more than a month, and say I'm not going back to the neighborhood. I'm not going to go back there. I'm just going to stay away until things get a little bit more calm so I can come back. Because you have to be really careful when you're in these situations. Things can really explode easily, and you have to be very aware of that and try to separate yourself as much as you can. This was also something that was complicated for me to get away from. They all like posing, and if you have a camera in front of them, the first thing they will do is pose for you. So it was very hard for me to get over that stage while photographing them. So it's just a matter of time. I had to stay there for days and days and long hours for them to start becoming the fly in the wall, like they say. But that doesn't really happen. But at the beginning, it was completely complicated for me. So here again, showing a little bit of how kids they are. They were playing one of the toys of Kyrell. They were trying to drop it from an 11th floor of the projects, and before that they were throwing it just in the floor and laughing of how he will destroy himself if he falls from such a height. And they just they play all the time until things get a little bit more serious. B-Rat got shot in the foot 2 days before this, and since the gang members weren't able to kill him, they were looking for him to like end their job. But also police officers were looking for him because of this whole shooting and all this fight. So he was completely scared inside his apartment, inside his room, with just a knife. He didn't have a gun. They called him grips. He didn't have a gun. I was just in a corner, almost shaking, and being like, "Hey Nick, how do you got here? What do you do? Is someone outside? Do you see someone? Can you go outside and like check for me? Like look if there's something. Is there police officers?" So there's a lot of you kind of like you want to help them, but you cannot get involved in that. I had to be very careful with it, and things can get serious very easily. So they had guns. And I knew they had guns, but they've never showed them to me before. They were very afraid. They didn't trust in me as much as they do now to show me guns at the moment. So one day, they were like, "Okay, we're all here. We have our guns. Let's like pull out our guns, and let's just show them and like take some pictures with them." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool. Like, maybe it's gonna be helpful for my project." This is one of my least favorite pictures actually, but. They had their guns and they wanted the pictures. And the reason I brought up this image is because I just finished reading a book called Photographs Not Taken. And just minutes before this picture, something amazing happened. This guy, his name is Murder. He's 16 years old and he bought this gun for $250 in the street from a member of another gang called the Bloods. And he took his gun outside of his pants. Everybody was sleeping on a bed that is behind that. And he just pulled the gun out and to scare his friends, kind of like joking, he pointed at all of them. And they, of course, don't have any security standards. They will keep the finger on the trigger and they'll just play with it like he's doing at the moment. and all the friends just like jump backwards and we're like, "Hey, like don't play with that." And I had my camera, but I didn't know what to do. And I wish I had taken that picture. I like really regret not taking it. I felt insecure at the moment. I didn't know they would allow me to take pictures of them with the gun. So I felt like if I took it, I might get into a trouble. It would cause a problem. So I didn't took it. But I think it's very good. I really like this book because I think it's very good to remember these pictures or these photographs that you don't take. It's good to remember how they look like, just in case you get the opportunity again, you do it. Like it's there and you do it straight away. So for me, it's very good to remember how this image was, and I have it, I could draw it, and just in case it happens again, I could take the picture. 2 days afterwards, they bought this gun. Smokey had the gun at his place. They lived there. And police officers broke into his place and found the gun, cocaine, marijuana, and crack. He got locked up with 2 other guys for 2 days. This is Chucho in front, and in the back it's King Bucket. They are part of the gang, and they were just waiting for Smokey outside. This day I felt such a strong loyalty to the gang. They waited for 48 hours outside Smokey's place for him to come back. And they knew he will come back because the other 2 guys who went with Smokey, they won't let the leader of the gang get into jail. So they will take the charges for the gun and the drugs and say that Smokey was completely clean so he can go back to the neighborhood and keep running the gang. It's very, very organized. It's completely impressive. Just a few weeks after Smokey went back, he was already in the streets wanting to fight. And this is kind of like the environment in the streets. They are always walking. It's very aggressive. If there's someone from another gang, they will call him, or even if they don't know if it is from another gang, if there's another young kid in the street, they will call him and start calling the names from that gang, from different gangs. Let's say there's Trinitarios or there's Bloods. They will call them, "Hey, Blood brother, Trinitario, Patria," to see if they respond. If they respond and they do the gang sign from that gang thinking that they are friends, they'll go and they'll jump on them and they'll beat them up. So if someone says something like that for you in the streets or do like a rock sign, don't do it. This is dangerous. There's a lot of risks that I knew I will take by trying to document this project. There's a lot of stabbing. There's a lot of shooting. Shootings don't usually, they are not good at aiming. I think it's kind of for the position of the shooting. They're not that good at aiming and they usually fail at shooting, but they do have always knives with them. And it's very risky and it can go out of control very, very fast. So I wanted a little bit of how they are this playground feeling of them being on the streets and how everything is just a game I'm playing around. So I started to photograph a little bit more outside and during the day, during different moments, just to get this feeling a little bit bigger of all the group thing. At this moment, they are dealing crack. The guy on the left is the dealer, and B-Rod over here, it's the one getting the crack. And they do it usually in the different floors of the projects because in the lobby of the projects, they will have security cameras as well as police officers. So it'll always be on a 5th, 6th, 7th floor where nobody is or they know the neighbors. Due to all the gang violence and drug dealing that it's in the streets of this project and a few other projects in Brooklyn, police officers and NYPD decided to put huge reflectors in the street to keep everything bright 24/7. You can even go now to more than one of the projects in Brooklyn and you'll see this, which for me it's somehow invading privacy. And if you live in a 2nd, 3rd floor, the light definitely reaches your house. It's very, very strong. Then I'm not a sports photographer, but they invited me to play basketball more than once, and I'm very bad at playing basketball as well. So I decided to photograph that, but maybe not the best pictures. And then at the end, I haven't finished this project. It's kind of ongoing. I go once in a while, and I try to take pictures of it and try to develop different things. But at the end, I really feel this solitude and loneliness from the gang members, even though they have such a big group. And there's, as I said, more than 35,000 active members and 7,000 in New York, which are mainly in Brooklyn and Harlem. They're very lonely. They have a lot of depression. There's a lot of they really need a hand. Even if you can be anybody. If you just go there to listen to their stories or give a hand, they will be more than welcome to do that. Because somehow they really need that, and it's just to cover all these violence and defensive, and it's just trying to be the best one and trying to rule the neighborhood thing. But they're very alone. Even in groups, sometimes there will be a group of 10, and you can see that the 10 members at the same time, they are all very lonely and very sad. I'll feel like hugging all of them. And that's kind of the view of Manhattan from the top of one of the buildings, just to see how close it is to the city. And well, that's my all about my project on the Bloodline about the Latin Kings. I don't know if anyone has any question about it or something you'd like to know. Nope. Okay, I'm gonna show a little bit more of what I do when I'm not shooting gang members. And I like to do a lot of stuff with Instagram, and I shoot everything with my phone. I have an iPhone 4, not the best camera, but I try to get the best from it. And well, this is kind of what I work on. I'm addicted to helicopters. I really love helicopters, and I have a lot of pictures of them. I take them from my home. Wherever I am, I just pull up my phone and take pictures of helicopters. I feel they are amazing. I can't believe how they fly. This is from the window of my apartment. There's a little helicopter there. I know it's too dark. That's in Coney Island. Just a lot of helicopters. I really like them. Then I take other stuff. I like, if I see a crime scene or something, ambulances or fire department, I like taking pictures of that as well. And well, I was eating and I don't even know what happened outside. Someone just got like a car, crashed him, and police officers came and then an ambulance, and I just wanted to take a picture of it. So with the phone, I really like it because it's just really curiosity. It's something that happens at the moment. Sometimes I even have my big camera with me, but I just feel that it's a little bit more of a phone thing, and I just take it for Instagram. And it's something that I recommend everybody. Instagram is a great platform if you want to give yourself like exposure. It's very nice, and there's a lot of apps to play with to post-process images, and it's very fast. You'll have it on your pocket, and it'll take you 5 minutes. I follow these guys that I really wanted to take this picture like this. I follow them for probably 3 blocks just to make it. Sometimes I take it very serious. Then I don't really like architecture, but I thought this looked like a hot dog, so I took this picture. Then this is my girlfriend without a nose. Then this is in Vermont, Lake Willoughby. Raining. Subway, people sleeping. I did a whole other series of people, like just hands of people that was sleeping, and I feel bad that I didn't brought it to show you. Summer, I love that they do this in New York. I wish they do it in Colombia. It's so hot in my city and they don't do anything like this. I don't experiment that much with color. I feel like sometimes I'm a little bit weak on it. But it's definitely something I'm trying to work on. And I look a lot of photography and I get a lot inspired by photography. There's a similar picture. I kind of feel bad saying that it's similar because he's amazing, but there's a picture that looks like this by Matt Stewart. And I like books. I love books a lot, so I just like reading them and looking through pictures. And I just saw a lot of pigeons, and I just wanted to do something similar to what he did. Again, summer. Subways. New York is a great platform for taking pictures. I was taking a shower and I saw the fly and I was like, Laura, bring my phone now. I really need to take this picture, and just like took it in the shower. I love phones. I love being able to take pictures with the phone. A bit of reflections. I love shadows and reflections. And then very good looking firefighter. Again, just there was a car crash in the corner of my street. My girlfriend went to work and she just told me, hey, something happened here. You might want to bring your camera. I was like, the camera is out of batteries. I'm just going to bring the phone. And this is also inspiring one of my classmates. I have from my great photographer, Yen Yen. And I love his photography, so I want to take a picture like that. This is at the Jeff Koons exhibition at, I forgot the name of the museum. Doesn't matter. And then this, I just took it 2 days ago in a bar. I just saw the window crack and I really wanted to take a picture. It took me like 10 minutes to take it. Then this is my cat, Tortilla. This is also inspiration in other photographers. I don't know if you've seen the cover of the book, The Americans. And then this is a little bit of a project that I'm trying to work on, kind of like starting, called Building Up New York. I'm very interested in how, New York is a massive city that grows every day. And construction-wise, I feel like there's a lot of illegal or people without documents working in New York for a very, like, they get paid very bad, and majority of them are usually Latin American. And I wanted to photograph that, and basically just for them. I didn't really want to do it for me. I just wanted to give them a portrait of like their experience. They are, for me, somehow heroes. For their families, they are definitely heroes. People who made it all the way to New York, across the river, or across, like, going through very hard conditions, and now they are here, they are working, and they're earning much more money than the one they used to earn before, and they are even able to send money back to their families back in Guatemala or back in Mexico. So I really wanted to do this just for them. So I started a series of portraits. I'll put their name, their age, where are they from, when they arrived to America, and what do they do on construction. And I should do a little bit more of interviews, but I do talk to them a lot, and the stories that I've heard is just completely amazing, what they have to go through to get here, and how they feel. And I really wanted to show them how proud they are of where they are. I didn't want to show the immigrant being like somehow scared or humiliated. I feel like they are very proud of where they are and what they are doing here. They are very strong people, and I just like really admire all of them. This is the youngest I've documented. He's 15 years old. And it took him 3 months to get to New York. His parents gave him $100 to get over here. He had to pay, like, for the coyote, whatever, to guide him through the desert. And it was since he didn't have that much money, it took him like a long, long time to get here. And then he only had a little piece of paper with the phone of his uncle that lives here in Queens. And he made it all the way over here and ended up meeting his uncle after 3 months here in New York. And he's 15, and he's just amazing. He's a very cool guy. They call him El Niño. And I just like him. And then I put this in here because I feel like photography is a two-way thing. And sometimes I get very concerned with, somehow I really want to be this superhero and like save the world, and like, I just feel like I could do it. Like I could go and like have this, like solve all these issues and do all this stuff with photography, and I'm gonna be like the next big thing. And I just like try to hold on a second and convince myself that I don't really need to be a superhero. What I really need to be is a superhuman, and just give as much as I can from what I have. In this case, if it is photography, give myself with that, give myself with listening, give myself with my feelings, give myself with my time. And I feel like photography is a lot about what do you have to give as a photographer to your subjects, but it's also very important what do you have or how can you receive from your subjects, because what you receive for them is very important. It's very important for them that you take care of what they give you. So for me, all my experience with the Latin Kings it's just a treasure. I save it with me, and it's gonna be with me forever. And the same with the immigrants and every single person I photograph. I just try to get from them as much as possible, and I keep it for myself. And that's all. Thank you.